For those of you who don't know me, my name's Dr Chidi. Everyone calls me Dr Chidi because they can't pronounce my surname, Ngwaba. Can anybody say Ngwaba? Yeah, that's not bad, not bad. We'll stick with Dr Chidi. So today we're going to be talking about something very close to my heart. If we can just keep it on there, that would be wonderful. And I've entitled it, actually, Aces High. Now, I know most of you play cards for money, right? Okay, I'm in the wrong crowd. Okay, I know most of you don't actually play cards, but this will become quite significant to you as the talk goes on. But I want to take you back a little bit, if I may. In 2015, Britain celebrated 50 years since the death of Sir Winston Churchill. Did you know that? 50 years since the death of Sir Winston Churchill. Sir Winston Churchill is the man really credited with helping defeat the Nazis during the Second World War. But of course, he didn't do it on his own, did he? There are all these great men and women who laid down their lives so that Britain, Europe, the world could be free. In fact, one of Winston Churchill's favorite quotes was, "Never was so much owed by so many to so few." Because these people we consider as heroes. They laid down their lives for us. Without them, who knows what the world would be like today. But there's an even wiser man who said something about warriors. He said, "Better a patient man than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city." That was said by King Solomon many, many years ago. And what he's really saying is that warriors are fantastic. Without them, where would we be? However, there are things even more important than being a good warrior. Being a person who has self-control. And you know, we've all got different problems, different weaknesses when it comes to self-control. You know, it's well documented what are my problems with self-control, okay? I have a little bit of a problem with sweet things and sugary things. And, you know, if I'm in the presence of these things, I have to really treat them like alcohol, you know, for an alcoholic. Otherwise, if I take one, I'll end up taking 10, okay? So self-control is very important. And when you think about all the ills in society that go on. Alcoholism, murder, crime, rape, all these things, when you boil them all down, they come down to a lack of self-control. So it's very important that we try and find out how can we acquire this self-control. And when it comes to things like food, you know, I'm a doctor, I spend a lot of time talking about health. When it comes to eating the right thing, I get this question all the time. Why does everything bad taste so good? And why does everything good taste so bad? I don't think that's absolutely true. I mean, we've got some good chefs in here, I know. But really, everybody used to ask me this, you know, everything that tastes good is bad for me. Why should, it's almost like there's a conspiracy against us. And actually, I think there is. You try and tell your child to eat the Brussels sprouts. You can spend hours trying to get them to eat the Brussels sprouts, but you mention the word chicken McNuggets and their eyes light up. Now, some of you may have heard this theory that I came up with called the Dr Chidi Method. You ever heard of the Dr Chidi Method? Hands up anybody who's heard of the Dr Chidi Method. Okay, one or two people. Okay, well, the Dr Chidi Method is something that I came up with because I find it difficult to resist certain types of food. I'm being honest with you. Okay, I have a very bad sugar addiction. So I came up with this that helped me get through, so I like to share it with everybody else. So those of you who know it, it is when you see something that you really want to eat, something sugary, you know, very sweet and sugary, and a donut, a cake, a biscuit, chocolate, you know you shouldn't have it, but the worst thing you can say to yourself is, don't eat it. You know, if you say that, you'll want to eat it even more. You know that, right? We're like children, really. If you tell a child not to have something, they want it even more. We're like children inside. So don't say to yourself, I can't eat the biscuit, I can't eat the donut. Rather, say to yourself, I will eat the donut, That allows your body to relax. But I'll eat it in half an hour. All of us, even I, could wait half an hour. At the same time, eat something like an apple, something healthy and sweet. That allows your blood sugar to rise slowly until after half an hour, you've got enough sugar in your blood to allow you to overcome the urge for the donut. Okay, so we call it the Dr. Chidi Method because it stands for don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. Don't resist it, choose to have it, but delay it. You know, this can work with many aspects of our lives. You know, you go past that shop, you see those shoes. Only the women are laughing. I don't know why. I don't know why. Yeah, so coincidentally, this method is just called the Dr. Chidi Method. I don't know how it got there. But look, when we're talking about how lots of people tell us, you know, eat the right stuff, do the right exercise, but some people are starting to ask, you know, I may be overweight, but is it because of the cards that I was dealt at birth? You know, the cards I was dealt at birth. Is it in my genes? In other words, is it my parents' fault? You know, it's not my fault I'm overweight. It's not my fault I'm a diabetic. Maybe it's my parents' fault and they just passed down their genes. Well, to that, I like to invite you to understand something that really does happen at childhood. And that's why I've called it ACEs High. ACEs High doesn't really refer to cards, it actually refers to something completely different. It's adverse childhood experiences. Adverse childhood experiences. What we have found in loads of research is that if you have an adverse childhood experience, and what does that mean? It means anything that causes you a lot of stress. Maybe separation for a long time from your parents, adoption, fostering, maybe one of your parents is an alcoholic or depressed or something like that. All of those things that can lead to stress in your life as a child, they actually brings out certain characteristics in your later life. So, for example, in this research we found out that British children born in 1958, it took about 7,000 men, 7,000 women, and they found that if men had 2 or more adverse childhood events, they had a 60% increase in death by 50. 2 or more. Look about the women. The women, if they had 2 or more ACEs, they had an 80% increased risk of death by 50. Now, an even bigger study, this one done in America, it shows that of the 17,000 people who had an ACE, 70% of them had at least one, and of those that had at least one, 87% scored more than one, so they had 2, 3, or 4. And look at what's written in red. If you had an ACE score above 3, you have a 400% risk of having lung disease later in life. Really what that means is you have a 400% risk of being a smoker. 500% risk of being depressed. Suicide rate of 1,220%. Amazing. And being obese is 1,000% risk. Just by having 3 or more adverse childhood events. Now, what does this mean? This then means that when we're children, certain things are happening to us to program us to become unhealthy. I think this also helps us to think through the way we talk to people who have problems in life. For example, often people will look at a drug addict and say, well, you know what, I could never be a drug addict, I could never be a smoker, I could never be an alcoholic. But you have to think about what is it in their life that happened to bring them to this place. It takes away a lot of the judgment. It takes away all of the condemnation. I've seen many people in my life who have been terribly affected by drugs or alcohol. And I look at them and I say, well, you know, I don't know how this happened to you. But when they start to tell you about what happened in their life, you think, wow, actually you're doing quite well. Just being here. With all that has happened to you, I don't know if I would be as good as you. That's what I end up saying to most of them. And you know what? There is something deeper. What we're talking about are things that are deeper than the genes. Genes are very important. But what we find out is that genes can even be affected by how you think. This lady, Elizabeth Blackburn, she did some excellent research. She got a Nobel Prize for it. She found out that people who are very stressed, they have these short ends of their DNA. They're called telomeres. And if you're affected badly by stress, the shorter they get. And the shorter they get, the shorter your lifespan. However, if you are able to change your attitude towards the stress, those telomeres get longer and you live longer. So it's not the stress that is killing people. It's our response to it. So how can we change our response to stress? Okay, what can we actually do? Number one, we have to change our thoughts and our words, actually. Did you know you can change your thoughts? You change your thoughts because your thoughts, as Gandhi said, become words, and your words become actions, and your actions become habits, and habits become your character, and your character determines your destiny. But it all starts in your mind, in your thoughts. And the only way you can get rid of all of those negative thoughts, those thoughts about all the people that are hurting you, the only way you can get rid of them is by replacing them with better thoughts. So rather than thinking about all the people that have done you wrong, what about remembering the people who've done you right? Rather than thinking about everything that I don't have, what about being thankful for everything I do have? Those sort of thoughts actually lead to a less stressful life. And in fact, in the Bible, going back to King Solomon again, he says, "For as a man thinks in his heart, so is he." Where the mind goes, the man follows. So if we can change what's going on in our heads, we can actually determine our destiny. And it's not just about what we think. We're told to actually speak about it too. Talk about it. I talk to lots of people and they say to me, you know, I'm just not very good. I'm not very bright. I'm not able to do this. I'm not able to do that. We should stop saying that about ourselves. We should start focusing on the things we can do. We can all do something. Now you might think, oh, this is just all psychological mumbo jumbo. But look at this. This is what the Bible says. Let the weak say, I am strong. We can't just think it. We have to say it. Daily. Talk about all the things that are good for us and all the good that has been done for us. So that's it. We need to change the way we think. These are ways that we can acquire self-control. What about this then? Embrace the pain. Stop avoiding it. Anybody want to embrace pain today? Anybody? Most of us don't want to embrace pain. Pain is not nice. But this tells us something interesting. It tells us that if you avoid a small amount of pain in your life, it usually leads to more pain in your life. I'll give you an example. When I was a casualty officer working in A&E, I always remember this big guy. And in those days, you had to wait a long time in A&E. Big guy, he had tattoos all up his face. And eventually, when he came to see me, he said, "Doctor, I've got this little splinter in my finger. I'm wondering, can you actually get rid of it for me?" I said, "Yeah, of course I can. I'll take you into this room. I'm going to inject your finger. Then we're going to take the splinter out." He said, "What, needles? You're going to put a needle in my finger?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to put a needle in your finger. It's to anesthetize your finger so you don't feel it." He said, "No, doctor, I can't do that." He's got tattoos all up his face. I don't know. When did this needle phobia start? I said, "Well, look, I can't do it unless I anesthetize your finger." So he thought a little bit, and he said, nah, don't worry, I'll leave it. I'll just go home. All right? I'll just go home. I can't take needles in my finger. 2 days later, he came back, and his finger was the size of his hand, all swollen up. So he couldn't get the splinter out, so it's all become infected. We had to take him to theatre. He was in hospital for about 2 or 3 days, so he had a lot of trauma because he was unable to get that splinter out. And that's the point. If you avoid a little bit of pain, it just gets worse. There are some of us today who are avoiding a little bit of pain. There are aspects in our lives that we just don't want to go there. We don't want to get them sorted out. So we leave them, and they fester, and they swell up. And then one day you just blow up because you are unable to deal with the small amount of pain. You know, you're unable to humble yourself and say, you know what, I need some help. I need someone to talk to. I have a problem. I know it's painful to talk about it, but actually, by talking about it, the pain will go away forever. So embrace the small amount of pain and avoid the large amount of pain. The next one is let the seed lead. Let the seed lead. All of us are planting seeds. Did you know that? We're sowing seeds. And you know, whatever you sow, so shall you reap. And my question is, what are you sowing today? Are you sowing seeds of happiness, joy, peace? Or are you sowing seeds of bitterness, envy, and anger? Because whatever we sow today, we reap back later. We're talking about trying to get a hold of self-control. We can't do it if we're always bitter, angry, and stressed. It just doesn't work. We have to start sowing seeds of happiness and peace. And that means, you know what? Getting out of ourselves and doing something for other people. Stop thinking about ourselves a bit. Back to Proverbs again. He who has pity on the poor lends to the Lord, and he will pay back what he has given. Often we spend most of our time thinking about all the things I don't have. I don't have enough money, but there are people who need help. We don't know how rich we are. You're seeing people killing themselves just to get to this country and live like us. It's sad to see, but it actually makes me think, you know what, I've been really blessed in my life. Look what they're going through just to live like me. The next thing, if we want to get control of ourselves, if we want self-control, we have to start walking forwards and not walking backwards. What do I mean by that? I'm saying that many of us spend much of our life looking back on people who've hurt us, looking back on people who stole from us, rather than letting it go and walking forward. If we keep looking back, we continue to stay in an atmosphere of stress all of our life. Bitter, angry, resentful. If we can let go of the past and look forward to the future, it leads to a peaceful, lower blood pressure life, believe me. The people who are able to let go, even if they're insulted, you find that all of their blood pressures are lower. Their rates of cancer are lower. There is a study, I may have told you this one before, there's a study done in America a few years ago where they took 2,000 African American women who have had racial abuse fired at them at work and in their workplace. They found that those 2,000 women had an average of a 300% increase in breast cancer, just because of the stress and because of the bitterness, because of the way we respond. Now, it doesn't actually seem fair that somebody should be racially abused and then get the cancer. But we have to learn how to let go. I always use this example of a monkey. If you ever want to catch a monkey in the jungle, all you need to do is get a barrel full of bananas and nuts, everything that the monkey likes to eat. Make a little hole in the side, just big enough for him to get his hand in. And then you just wait. You seal the barrel and wait. The monkey comes along, he looks in the barrel, puts his hand in, grabs hold of a banana. Now he's made a fist, he can't get his hand out. It does not occur to him to let go of the banana, to set himself free. He'll be screaming his head off, but he still won't let go of the banana. And you know what? That's just like us. We have these issues that we just can't let go of. If you can't let go, you're trapped like the monkey. You're trapped in depression, stress, ill health, and a miserable life. What we have to do, however painful it may be at the time, is let go. Free yourself. These are positive tips for us to live a healthy life. So when all these things are happening against us, what we have to also remember is promotion comes after a test. Nobody gets a promotion just for doing nothing. Sometimes things happen to us to elevate us. They're not stumbling blocks in our way. They actually end up being stepping stones to a higher living. I don't know if you ever heard of this woman, Joyce Meyer. Yeah, Joyce Meyer, this woman was abused terribly as a child by her father. Somehow she managed to let it go. Not just let it go, forgave him. And as she was growing up, she took this man into her home and looked after him. She ended up baptizing him. Now she's going all over the world encouraging people because she was able to let go of the problem. And actually that problem turned into her success. Now, if you really want to get rid of some of our terrible addictions and get self-control, one of the things we have to do is share our faults. There's a text that says, confess your sins one to another, that you may be healed. It doesn't say confess your sins so that you may be forgiven, because God will forgive at any time. But if you want to be healed, if you want to be free from this problem, you have to find somebody to talk to confess, to be accountable to. That's what you find in Alcoholics Anonymous. You go to Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the first things you have to say is, hello, I'm Chidi, I'm an alcoholic. I'm not an alcoholic, all right, just in case. I have my problems, but I'm not an alcoholic. But actually, it's sharing the problem that helps you to not go back to the same problem. We have to find people, and that's why churches are such a great institution, because they should be places where we can find people that we can confide in, who won't blab your story everywhere. I'm sure you all belong to such churches. You're really blessed people. But yes, it's by doing that that we can be free from the addiction. If somebody has a terrible addiction and they're keeping it to themselves and nobody else knows about it, it is almost certain that they will never recover from that addiction. You have to find somebody to share it with. And number 7, the last of the numbers, is guard your heart. Very interesting text. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. It's actually interesting that until 1624, we didn't even know what blood, the issue of blood, did for the body. We didn't know. William Harvey discovered it down in Kent. But actually, this text says something even more than that. It says, look, the issues of our heart don't come from outside. It's not somebody else's problem. It's not my boss. It's not my husband. It's not my wife. It's not my children. The issues of life spring from our own heart. We are the problem. The way we respond to everybody. I remember once I was going into Regent's Park. I was driving and I was behind another car, and we were waiting at a red light, and the red light was taking an awful long time to change. And I remember I could just feel my blood pressure rising. I was like, come on, what's wrong with these lights? And after about 10 minutes, I think there was something wrong with the lights. After about 10 minutes, I just looked in front of me, and in the car in front of me, I could just see somebody bobbing their head to some music. I didn't really care. We both had to wait the same amount of time. I was getting stressed, they were relaxed. The problem is not with the lights or with the transport system. The problem came from my own heart. The problem is not with everybody around us. It comes from our own heart. Now I've got this Life Colours program, and in the grey section we talk about depression. Now, I'm not going to cover depression right now, but just to let you know, there are some things that we tell people who are depressed. First of all, you need to go and see a doctor, be assessed. Don't just try and do it all on your own. But definitely there are things you can do to help. There's a Harvard medical study that showed us that by exercise, just a good 60 minutes exercise every day is just about as good as most antidepressant drugs, if you're not suicidal. We know that. We also know that changing your diet, having a healthy plant-based diet is good. It can actually gives you all the nutrients you need, that serotonin that helps you to stay alert and happy. Absolutely fantastic. But there's something else that's very important for people who are depressed. You see, when you slip into depression, and anybody who's ever experienced will know this, you tend to spend an awful lot of time thinking about yourself, about how things are affecting you. And that it's very difficult to break that cycle. You start thinking, in fact, I remember one time a guy, he came into, when I was a GP, he came into my office and he just said, "Doctor, I'm depressed." He comes every week. And I just said, "Okay, yeah, fine, sit down, let's have a talk about it." And he said one thing. He said one thing to me. He said, "Doctor, if my life was a board game, it would not be snakes and ladders. It would be snakes and snakes." Yeah, and like you, I just laughed. Here's a depressed man in front of me, and I'm laughing. But the problem was I laughed so much I couldn't control myself. You know, when you're not supposed to laugh, you just laugh even more. So I was there for 5 to 10 minutes with tears going down my eyes because I thought it was so funny. If he'd got up and ran out, there's nothing I could have done. But after I'd finished and composed myself, he said to me, "Doctor, that is the first time I've been of any use to anybody." "Thank you. I'll see you next week." What he was really saying is, in my depression, all I'm doing is thinking about myself. Nobody else matters. Seeing you laugh, coming from me, that makes a difference. And that is a way to break the cycle of depression. Even if you don't feel like doing it, just find somebody to help. It may be giving somebody 50 pence on the street. It can be something very small. But if you find yourself in that cycle, just going outside of yourself and doing something for somebody else can actually break the cycle because it has so many benefits for us. I'm going to show this little video for you, and we'll see.
เขาจะได้อะไรถ้าเขาทำแบบนี้ทุกวัน เขาจะไม่ได้อะไรเลย ไม่ได้รวยขึ้น ไม่ได้ออกทีวี ไม่มีใครรู้จัก ไม่ได้มีชื่อเสียงที่มากขึ้น เพราะสิ่งที่เขาได้คือได้แค่ความรู้สึกได้เห็นความสุขได้เข้าใจได้ความรักได้ในสิ่งที่เงินซื้อไม่ได้ได้โลกที่สวยงามกว่าเดิมในชีวิตคุณอะไรคือสิ่งที่คุณต้องการมากที่สุด
So he doesn't have much himself, but he gives. And people on the outside would look and say, well, why should you give when you don't have much yourself? But actually, we get so much by giving. It doesn't matter if everybody looks at you and says, oh, you're a bit of a fool, you're a chump, you're a wimp. It doesn't matter. We gain. We gain in ways that really people can't fully understand. So we should stop looking at ourselves and thinking, you know what, I don't have this, I don't have that. Going back to the card analogy, I like this. Life is like a game of poker. You have to play the hand you're dealt. A wise player can play a weak hand and win the game. Some of us feel like we're weaklings. Some of us feel like we don't have enough. I hear people say to me, oh, if only I was richer, if only I was taller, if only I was better looking, or whatever. And we don't recognize all the gifts that we have. Imagine Helen Keller, born blind, deaf, and unable to speak. But she's left such a tremendous legacy on this earth. What did she say? The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched. They must be felt with the heart. Or what about Stephen Hawking? Anybody want to swap places? Unable to move a muscle now. But still, look at the legacy he's left on earth. Many of us don't realize the amount of gifts we have. If we did realize it, and if we did exercise it, you know what? We would have less problems with self-control. And when we often look down on ourselves, actually it means that we're never going to be able to use the gifts that we've been given. I remember there was a story of a soldier in the Vietnam War. He was with his platoon, but in all the chaos, he was cut off from his platoon. He was now on his own. Then he could see the enemy advancing towards him, so he had to find a place to find and hide. So he went up a hill and he hid himself in a cave. There were lots of caves there, and he hid himself in a cave, and he just waited. He had hours to spend, so he was just looking, and he prayed to God. He said, look, Lord, I want to get away from the enemy. If you could maybe create a brick wall in front of the cave, then I could escape. Well, he waited, no brick wall came, and then he just noticed this spider in the corner of the cave. And over the hours, that spider had made a little web, and it went over the face of the cave. And the soldier prayed to God, and he said, look, God, I asked for a brick wall, and you gave me a web. Come on. So he could hear the enemy advancing towards him. They were going in and out of all of the caves. Then they came to his cave. He was just preparing himself to fight. And then someone said, look, there's a web over the front of the cave. No one could have gone in there, otherwise they would have disturbed it. So they moved on. They passed by his cave. When he saw that, he got down on his knees and he said, Lord, I'm sorry. I should have known that a spider's web in your hands is stronger than a brick wall. What is it that we have in our hands to give to God? Are we neglecting it like he neglected the spider's web? God has something to do for each and every one of us. He's given us gifts. However big or small you think they may be, we have those gifts. Let's celebrate them and let's allow God to use us. Amen.